Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us for the Striving Readers Comprehensive Literacy Fidelity Monitoring webinar. My name is Roland O'Daniel, and I'm going to be your co-host today with Dana Steele. Dana, do you want to say hi?
I do. Hey guys, welcome. I'm so glad that you're joining us, and a special welcome to everybody that's new to Striving Readers, because we've got some new people that have joined Striving Readers. So we're glad to have you on board with us.
So the primary focus of today's webinar will be to give you an overview of the process. It hasn't changed dramatically, but we are going to make some changes and let you know about what those will look like. Talk about team selection, who should be on the team, and then finally, beginning of the scheduling process and what that should look like. We'll go over the tools in the second webinar, and we'll talk at the end of this one, we'll talk about who should make sure that they have watched that second webinar.
And
we are recording this, so it will also be uploaded here in about 72 hours.
And just for clarification, I wanted to I know that we've got some new people joining right now. I'm Dana Steele, and I'm the director for the Striving Readers Grant. So when you're sending emails and asking questions and clarifications, it's going to me. And Roland works at the Collaborative for Teaching and Learning, and he is doing monitoring for Striving Readers. And we did this same monitoring last spring and took feedback, and Roland has even made the process even better. It was actually great last year, and we had so much good feedback on things that people learned and how much they enjoyed getting to go to other schools and share. So we'll be doing exactly the same thing, and this webinar is to tell you what to expect.
So I will keep everybody muted for the time being. We'll stop at the end of an important slide, go into the chat box just to see if there's any questions. So if you have any questions as you're going through, please feel free to add them to the chat. And then we'll also give you a chance to, if you have any questions that are longer, give you a chance to ask those questions as well.
So you remember from last year that the monitoring process had teams. And so each district is going to send 6 people to multiple days of going to other schools. And I want to make sure you remember that this is an observation. It's not an evaluation in any kind of way. And the whole purpose of it is just to monitor the fidelity of Circle literacy instruction. And just for you new people, the Circle, SRCL, stands for Striving Readers Comprehensive Literacy. A lot of times we'll talk about the Circle grant, and that's what we mean. We're just talking about those letters.
Okay, so let's talk about team selection first. So the team that you'll be identifying for your observations. So let me real quickly for the new people go back and take a step back and go over the process again. There are 45 districts who have been awarded the Circle subgrants, and the part of the evaluation process that we wrote into this grant was that there would be a formative process that schools could use, or districts could use, to see other districts, how they're implementing, what it looks like. It's an opportunity for sharing. And this is not an evaluation component, it is a formative piece. And so the difference is quite important. With an evaluative piece that Johns Hopkins is handling, they're looking at how well the grant is achieving its objectives. This formative piece is an opportunity to learn. Where are we in the process? How are we doing? We know that as we do big comprehensive systems change, that it takes time. Nobody expects a district to all of a sudden within just even a year or a year and a half to be implementing perfectly at this point in time. You got here because you did a needs analysis and you identified needs in your district, and this is an opportunity to think about how your district is approaching comprehensive literacy instruction birth through grade 12, and that's why we have teams that include early childhood groups, elementary groups, and middle high school groups. So we want to try to figure out how we're doing comprehensively, but again, it's also an opportunity to see how other districts are approaching some of the same problems and how they're addressing them, but also getting some feedback and on how you're doing as well from semi-impartial observers. I say semi-impartial because we're all connected to this and we all want to make sure that everything is going great, but it's also an opportunity for us to get some targeted feedback. So the first thing we need to think about is the team and team size. Districts are requested to send teams of 6. You can send a slightly larger team. We ask that the teams don't go above 10, and that really is so that we can manage the process. So the goal is that the 45 districts have been grouped into triads, into groups of 3, and District A will host, and then Districts B and C will attend. So the District A will have 6, District B will have 6, and District C will have 6. So that's 18 people that are taking part of the process. Hopefully there are 6 early childhood, 6 elementary, and 6 middle high. Sometimes we have a little bit fewer early childhood because there may not be as many early childhood programs to choose from. And so we have the ability to slide some of those people up into the lower elementary grades as well. We want to make sure that people have the chance to see literacy instruction as close to the age group where they feel most comfortable supporting and giving feedback and having some of that conversation. So for instance, you don't want me doing early childhood because I don't know anything about early childhood literacy. I'm good at middle and high, I can even stretch to upper elementary, but when you get into that literacy block, I don't have a whole lot of expertise. Dana, on the other hand, is very well versed in all of that. So teams of 6, we ask that the teams have, I've got a slide, I've lost a slide. All right, here we go. I've moved
Will
the
we
slide
be in
around.
the same triads as last year?
I'll go over that towards the end. We'll show you that in just a couple seconds. So at least 2 people from each level. We'd like at least 2 of the members to be classroom teachers. I know that causes a problem when you start trying to take teachers out of the classroom. And we'd like a split between district and school leadership whenever possible. We also know that some small elementary schools only have 1 principal. Getting them out of the building can be a problem. There's multiple reasons for this. We think that teachers learned a lot in the process last year based off of feedback, and we want to continue that process. It is really great if they can stay on the team the entire time. I realize that means 2.5 or 3 days out of the classroom, and that's a lot. And so that's a balancing act that you all will have to make that decision for. Again, if you identify 2 teachers and they can only do 1, that's fine. You know, we like having them on the team because they bring a different perspective than administrative and district leaders do. Having that range of people, again, gives expertise at all 3 levels. And the difference between the district and the school leadership is that it gives the opportunity for those school leaders to see what it looks like when they're actively supporting literacy in their building and how they may pick up some ideas to learn as well. So the difference between the district leadership perspective and the school leadership perspective, we like to have that balance whenever possible.
Hey, Roland, would you
Go ahead.
please clarify, when they're picking members for their team, is it best to have a consistent team that attends every time, like all 3 times the same team? Or how do you feel about them having different teams of people at each visit?
It's smoother from our perspective if you have the same team, but again, we recognize getting those people out of the building 3 times in a row can be difficult, especially, for instance, principals leaving the building for 3 days. We also know that if principals are part of the team and they're in district, they're generally very focused on their school, so it makes it difficult when you're hosting to have a hosting principal as part of the team, just because it's hard for them to split their perspective. Again, back to that's a good question, Dana. As consistent a team as we can, that gives people a little bit opportunity to see multiple perspectives. But again, if you can't swing that because you can't take a teacher out of their classroom for 3 days because they're already doing professional learning around the literacy work, we understand that. And so we ask that you just balance that as much as you can. Does that help?
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to take this as an opportunity to see if there are any questions from our participants in the chat. For some reason, oh, there it is. I guess I can't see my chat while I'm sharing. I'm going to stop share for just a second. Here we go.
I'll check the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I don't see anything.
Not Judy, did you get your microphone working? Okay, great.
So I'm going to go back to the share real quick.
Roland,
Yep.
I have a question. Last year, our teachers did not participate in our own walkthrough, and I know you're saying 3 days of walkthrough, so do our teachers participate in our own district's walkthrough?
That's a great question. Some districts did, and some districts chose not to have teachers participate when they were hosting so that they could be part of the observation group. It really is going to depend on the size of the district. When we were in LaRue County, they had teachers participate as observers, but when we were in Southgate, they didn't. And Southgate's a one building district, so that's fine. We understand that that literacy team or this team that you're bringing has a significant literacy background, so we want to make sure that they have the opportunity to share that, but we also know that that means that they cannot be able to participate when you are hosting. Did that help?
Now, who were the other teachers on that team?
Yes, thank you.
Lisa and Alexa.
Going to manage.
It was our
I'm going
chair.
to mute everybody. Okay. And Dana, I'm going to unmute you. All right.
Thank you.
All right. So let's talk about scheduling, and I'm going to get to the triads in just a second. There's two components to the scheduling that we'll talk about today. There's the work of CTL putting together the travel schedule so you'll know when you're going and where you're going. And then the other part is actually the scheduling of the observations for the monitoring teams when they are in your district. So let's talk about the first part. You all are grouped in triads again, and those triads are the same as last year. It is purely an issue of distance and size, and we know that there are several triads that have a longer travel time. We will try to work with those triads on starting time so that there is opportunity for you all to get there in a timely manner. Some of the districts are really close together, and we know some of them had an hour drive. We apologize for that. We are really doing the best we can to balance that, but I couldn't find any better groupings than the ones that we had last year. So this is important. We need to know your available dates. So this is something that the district points of contact need to coordinate with principals as soon as possible. We're not going to even start asking for this until mid-December, and then we will need this information by January 10th to begin the scheduling process. So we need to know your available dates for round 1, round 2, and round 3. And here's what I need all of the districts to hear very carefully. I need as many dates as possible. If you only give me 1 or 2 dates, you've got to understand I'm moving 45 pieces around, and if I only have 1 or 2 holes, they may not match up. And then we have to start doing some additional phone calls. So as many dates as we can where we can either host or visit another district in these rounds.
Roland, I want to make sure people heard you say that you need dates in round 1, you need dates in round 2, and you need dates in round 3. So make sure when you're giving dates that they're in round 1, 2, and 3, because he'll have to schedule, 3 different times. And what I hear you saying, Roland, is that you want multiple dates in each round if possible, but at the minimum, we have to have dates in all 3 rounds, correct?
Yes, ma'am. So let's go ahead and talk about that second round. We know that's going to be the one that is going to be hardest this year. The field tests for the new assessments are during that round. It is an additional length of time for that round so that we can try to work through the scheduling issues. I have no idea at this moment in time how that's going to work, but I'm hoping that the testing you'll be doing in your districts will be pretty a tight timeline, and we don't have too much overlap between districts who are just doing them at different times. I know that's not ideal. We just don't have any other options to go around that. We're starting earlier this year than we did last year, and we had some weather issues last year. It wasn't snow, it turned out to be rain and flooding, but we know we're going to have some weather issues during this period of time. Hopefully we don't have the other issues that we had, but we do know that testing is going to be in there.
And will you let us know, like, what round our district will be? Because those dates may look different.
Right, that's the next slide. So I'm getting there. I'm with you. That's the right question to be asking. So we'll send out the initial contact emails to the schools in mid-December. We will try to make sure we've got the updated principal list. So if you're the point of contact, when you get that mid-December, please make sure the principals know. You'd be surprised how many principals we talked to who did not know exactly what was going on with the process. And we want to make sure that they know that they're going to have people in their buildings and that they need to be talking with you all to get that scheduled. And then last but certainly not least, we'll send out at the beginning of January when everybody comes back from break, a reminder that we need those dates. And again, that deadline is January 10th. We'll start the scheduling process then. We would like to have them out to everybody by the 15th. If I've got dates and I can start scheduling, I will definitely get the first round out first and then send the other ones out after that once I know that I can get it all done. But that's that January 10th deadline. Okay, so here's your groupings. Here's the same group as we had before. You're reading across where it says group 1, group 2, and group 3. That's one triad. So Judy's Carter County East Carter feeder pattern is in that, will be the first group to host. Floyd County Central and Martin County will be visiting. And that second grouping, that February 17th to March 6th group, Floyd County Central will be hosting and Carter County East and Martin County will be visiting. And then that last grouping, March 9th to March 20th, Martin County will host and Carter East and Floyd Central will visit. So as you look at it, you should be able to read across and see your triad. I will also send this, this table to you in the email we send out as well.
Roland, I also want to point out that if you're in Danville or Washington, there will only be 2 because Lincoln County is no longer a part of Circle. And so there will only be 2 of you guys.
I forgot about that. Okay.
Hey, Roland, is there an opportunity if either Danville or Washington wanted to be a part of a third? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, we can work on something because they're pretty centrally located, both of them.
Okay, so just Danville and Washington, just let us know. I know that at least one of you has talked to me and said that you really loved having 3 and you were hoping somebody would be added. So maybe we could work that out for you. So let's talk about that after.
Okay, so this brings into the second part of the scheduling. I started at the beginning last time trying to do the scheduling, and that quickly became unmanageable. So we turned it over to you all. We're going to do the same thing this time, only we're going to start this way, and that makes it much easier on everybody else. I'll go back and through, once I get through the slide, I'll show you a couple samples of what it might look like just to refresh your memory. But I will also say, if you have any questions after this, and as you get into the actual scheduling of the observations, we will be available for support. We know it's a complicated piece and getting all the right information in the right places and how many different schedules to do. We'll have that conversation individually by district because it will depend on the size of the district and the number of teachers participating. But again, I need available dates. You'll see that several times throughout the day. January 10th. Once you get that, we'll send out the schedules, and then you'll start working internally with your schools to create the observation schedules. Again, we'll have observation schedules for early childhood, observation schedules for elementary, and observation schedules for middle high. You'll create your own using cohort 1 and 2 teachers. This is not just cohort 2 teachers. Schedules should include the teacher's name, classroom number, the bell schedule should be with it, grade, and content. Again, it should include the teacher's name, classroom number, grade, and content, and then the bell schedule should be with the schedule so we know if there's any changes to things that need to happen.
Roland, would you
Yes, ma'am.
please clarify bell schedule, because elementary do not have bell schedule. So could you please clarify what you would like to have from them?
Well, if you don't have a bell, if they don't have bells, then it won't be a big deal. But if they do have bells, in middle and high and some upper elementaries, then we would like that. It just means that the observers know if it's going to be a short observation or if they have a little bit of time. So if it's supposed to start at 10:30 and they're a few minutes late, that may not be a big deal. But if it's supposed to start at 10:30 and it's over at 10:45 and they're a few minutes late, then that really diminishes what they're able to see while they're in there, and they want to make sure they're being very careful about that.
So Roland, what about literacy block? In elementary, are you specifically wanting to see a literacy block? And if so, would you want them to submit the times that literacy block is going on?
Well, they're going to be doing the schedule, so that will be up to you all. Remember, though, this is comprehensive literacy instruction and not just reading in the literacy block. That is, I realize some of the programs are literacy block. In fact, Artful Reading, one of our elementary programs, is designed around the literacy block, but it also incorporates opportunities for students to do reading, writing, speaking, and listening across content areas. And the Striving Readers and Comprehensive Literacy, by definition, is the opportunity for all students to read, write, speak, and listen in all content areas. It's how students process information, not just reading. So that's really going to be up to you all when you're making these schedules, how to do that. Part of the thing that we're going to be looking at is we need to have schedules all day long. Literacy blocks are generally in the morning. If you all want to adjust your schedules, that's up to you all. But if the literacy block is in the morning, but we have people observing in the afternoon, they'll probably be observing in a math class or a science class or a social studies class. And then they'll just be looking for the opportunities that students have, again, to do reading, writing, speaking, and listening in service of content learning. Number 4 is important to recognize, and it's important that the school maps correlate with the information that you're giving us on the schedule. And I ask nicely, if we can, that the maps are readable for other people. I know sometimes maps don't get updated all the time, or by the time we get to February, the maps are a little bit outdated and things have moved around. But people don't know your buildings as well. Sometimes they've got a guide, sometimes they don't, and it's not a problem if they don't have one, if they've got a map to go with it. We will do all of the print for these. If you send us these documents electronically, either as a PDF or a scan, that's fine. We'll print them and put them in the folders to make sure we've got enough information. But these are the things that we need from the schedules. So I'm going to now take you into what a sample schedule might look like. So if you remember, this is one I mocked up from a spreadsheet from last year. We'll ask you to fill this information out. It'll have the feeder pattern and point of contact. And that information is in case there is a problem, who do we contact and who should we call? So in Breathitt County, we're going to pick on Stacy, and we'll call Stacy. That number, by the way, is made up because I couldn't find it. And then this observer, me, will be observing at LBJ Elementary. Again, having the principal's name and contact information is always nice in case there is a problem, in case we're driving and we get lost. It's always nice to have somebody to contact as we're making that transition. We'll have the teacher's name here. This is a grade 2 teacher in room number 23, and the first observation is 9:45. You'll see in the next one, I'm going to jump forward and then I'll come back to this. This is that calibration visit. If you remember back to the process, the first one we do will be together. So everybody who's going to LBJ in the morning will go see teacher 1, this second grade teacher, at 9:45. You'll notice we're giving 45 minutes for that observation. The observation is 15 to 20 minutes. And then they have the opportunity to talk about what they saw and how they process that information. We like to give about 45 minutes. That process generally takes the full 45 minutes depending on the conversation. So one of the questions we got a lot is, should we have a strong teacher here? That's really up to you. We're trying not to put the pressure on the teacher. That's easy for me to say. I'm not the one sitting in the classroom having 4 people walk in to observe me. But it's around making sure that we understand the characteristics of comprehensive literacy instruction. You'll then identify a second teacher, give us their information, starting time at 10:30. Notice that we don't have as much time. And then a third teacher if there's time. So it really depends. Breathitt County is an interesting one. There's a little bit of a drive between Sebastian and LBJ, so we want to make sure we give them time to get to their second site. If it's a district where the schools are not that far apart, you can give a little bit less time. But remember, they're trying to eat lunch during that time as well. So repeat the process for the second site. Teacher 1, Teacher 2, and Teacher 3. So let me go back real quickly and give a little bit of background. We've got 18 people, 6 of them early childhood, 6 elementary, 6 middle high. We've broken up into teams. There are 6 people at the elementary. So we don't want all 6 people going into the same 6 classrooms. That puts a log jam of people in classrooms. So that's why you have, you'll see in the spreadsheets, it looks something like this. You'll see Garrett 1, Garrett 2, Garrett 3 at the bottom of the thing. You'll see different worksheets within that one spreadsheet. You'll create a schedule. This is a high school schedule. This group, this is Garrett Middle High Team 2. They'll go to Garrett County Middle School first, and then in the afternoon, they'll go to the high school. The same group in the middle high group in Garrett would split in half at least, and I think we ended up with 3 different schedules for the middle high in Garrett County. And they would go to the high school first and then go to the middle school second. And so that way we're seeing different teachers at different times. We still have that first observation as a calibration visit, but instead of there being 6 people in that room, there are 3 people in that room. That makes it a more manageable process for the teachers and for the conversation that happens afterwards. Now,
Roland,
yes,
would you please clarify how long each observation is? How long will the team stay in each class?
15 to 20 minutes in the observation. So there's data that is clear that says if you're not going to do a full observation, 15 minutes gives you enough information to be able to pull out key characteristics that gets you through a transition time for most instruction. So we're using that as our basis. We have about a 15 to 20 minutes. If you stay in there for 15 minutes and there's nothing happening, you can go ahead and end the observation at 15 minutes. If you're in the middle of something and you want to see the end of it, it's fine to stay a little bit longer. We just have to be careful. We can't go in for 45 minutes for every observation. We understand that would be better, but we also understand in the constraints where we are, we want to make sure we have the opportunity to see as much instruction as possible. Notice in this one, in this calibration visit on this first one, I didn't catch this. The observations from 9:30 to 9:50, but there's an additional 25 minutes. This is a case where there may have been a bell schedule issue and they wanted to make sure that we got in there on time so that we were done at 9:50 with the observation because that was the end of the class.
So 15 to 20 minutes, correct?
15 to 20 minutes, yes ma'am. So do you have to do 3? Do you have to do 4 schedules? It's really going to be up to you. If you have a lot of teachers who you would like to get into that observation process, the more schedules you do, the more they're able to have excuse me, multiple people come into their classrooms, or they're able to have somebody come in the classroom. A lot of the observers preferred having a couple of people go into a classroom that gave them something to talk about as they were processing information. So I don't think you want to have 6 separate schedules. 3 is a good number. That gives you 2 people in each observation that they can share. If you want to make 4 and just recognize that we may not have enough people for that 4th schedule, that's fine. If we have, for instance, 9 people in the middle high school section, and we have a couple extra observers, we're happy to just put 3 people to a group, but we need at least 2 different schedules for each grade, for each level. So we would need at least 2 early childhood schedules, at least 2 elementary schedules, and at least 2 middle high schedules. Again, I go back to this. We'll support you in this process, and so as you're going through it and you say, I don't have any idea what this means, Roland, call me. I'm happy to walk you through the process and talk about what it looks like and help with that process. If you have 100 teachers who are part of the cohorts 1 and 2, I don't think we're going to be able to see them all this year. What we would like to do is a random sampling of teachers. We know that's difficult, but that gives you all the best chance for feedback and the observers the best chance to see average instruction on an average day in your district. Any questions? I'm going to check this chat box real quick. Dana, anything you want to add to while?
No, I don't think so. I don't see anything in the chat box, Roland. I'm checking it for you, so I'll let you know. I've got it up. I do want you to remember to tell your teachers, not only is this not an evaluation, that we really, it's not something where they'll get individual feedback. And so maybe if they knew that in advance, that might help as well. Because of the nature of it and the way it's set up, there's not time to give individual feedback to teachers. And so just in case you were wondering or your teachers are wondering, that won't happen.
That's a great point, and I should have started off with that right off the bat. Yeah, this is not an evaluative process. It is a formative process. We don't have inter-rater reliability, and that may sound like a cop-out, but people are learning they're clarifying their understanding of what this looks like and what these characteristics look like. So this is not a team of experts, and we don't expect everybody on your team to be experts in this process. This is, again, a formative learning process, both for the teachers who are implementing new strategies that they're picking up. So if we think about cohort 2 teachers who have been through training this summer, they are now just really in their 6th month or 7th month of implementation, and we're not asking them to be experts. We're just asking them to work with us around comprehensive literacy and show us what it looks like for them now in their building on this day. And we recognize that it looks different every day. Cohort 1 teachers who have been doing it for more than a year, we would hope we're going to see some difference, and we'll hopefully be able to tease out some of that difference, but that's going to be something that we don't know yet. And again, observers may still be cohort 2 teachers or new to the process, and we don't want to put them in the situation where they feel like they have to make any kind of judgment that is other than, this is what I think at the time, what I'm learning, and this is why it looks like this.
So on the classroom observation tool, we don't even record the teacher's name. So obviously in the schedule, you have a teacher's name, but when we record it, do our observation on the classroom walkthrough tool, we do not put the name of the teacher. We don't collect that.
And that's very intentional. Thanks, Dana. We're very intentional about that process so that we're not putting any teacher on the spot any more than we're already walking into their classroom. So again, just real quickly, as we kind of finish up this webinar, there's 4 big things that we'll need from you, and you don't have to get them together today, but we will start sending out the emails mid-December just to remind you that it's coming. As you begin thinking about the available dates, we'll send you one as soon as we get back from winter break, and then we'll need those available dates by January 10th. And as Dana reminded us, that's for group 1 dates, group 2 dates, and group 3 dates. We'll need dates for all 3 of those, and as many of those dates as we can, because again, we're putting 45 pieces together, not just your one district. And I know beggars shouldn't be choosers, but I'm really asking for your help on that. It really makes it a lot easier when you're trying to schedule these walkthroughs. When you are doing the scheduling of the walkthroughs using cohort 1 and 2 teachers as for the observation schedules, again, CTL is happy to offer as much assistance as you need to make that happen. We'll send you the spreadsheets and you'll send that back to us. We'll need those a week in advance of the scheduled walkthrough. You all send those to us a week in advance. We'll create the folders and we'll bring the folders with us that have all the information in there. Okay, Roland, but something happens and something changes, then we may need you to print if there are changes that happen to the schedule that when we get there. And that always does happen. When you're trying to do something and it's a week out and you're dealing with 45 or 50 people, somebody's going to be out. And we recognize that. Sometimes we can just put a line through the name and add somebody else in that spot. Sometimes it's a whole new schedule change. That's what's much more important, is that the schools know that we're going to be there on that day, and they're not doing a school-wide festival and nobody's doing any instruction. That's a much bigger issue for us. Okay, I'll send out the PowerPoint. We'll make it available for everybody anyway, but this table will also be in that mid-December email that we send out, but it's also the same groups we had last year. We'll work with Danville and Washington County if they want to pick up a third one, so we'll be in touch with them.
I also wanted to remind you, I've said this in an email, but I just want to remind you that all of the costs involved in your team traveling in the triads is paid out of your Circle grant funds. So I tried to tell you that this summer when you were doing budget, and also in the fall, just to make sure that you planned for that. But I know we had a few questions about that last year. I just wanted to make sure that that was really clear to everybody, that the travel reimbursement for anyone that goes on the monitoring visits is paid out of your district Circle money.
So we are using very closely to the same 3 tools we used last year. We took some feedback that we got as part of the evaluation process from Johns Hopkins and made some tweaks to language to align better some of the language that was on there. I'll share these with you in that mid-December, but we'll use the classroom observation checklist, we'll use the building walkthrough tool, and then the school performance guide at each level. And so we kind of walk up the ladder for the feeders pattern: classroom level, building level, and then the early childhood level, elementary level, and middle high level at the district or feeder pattern. So one more time, any questions from anybody? Oh, I see a chat. Carrie, I'm going to read your question real quick. So Carrie's question: last year I was part of the observation team, so many of the classes that we were scheduled to visit were unavailable. Recess, restroom breaks, etc. How would you suggest that we handle those situations? That's why when you all are putting the schedule together, it's really great to get the building level principals to give you some feedback about what's going on. And that's why it's also, this is not a gotcha. We don't want any of the teachers to not be aware that we're coming. It is perfectly fine for them to know that we're going to be there, so that we can avoid this kind of thing. That's why we gave up very quickly trying to manage that process, because it's just too much going on, especially at the elementary level, where they're flexible in how they assign time.
Roland, I want to be sure that everyone, because we do have some new people to the monitoring process, I want to make sure that they understand that we start with that classroom calibration and classroom observations, and then at the end of that time, you'll see on the sample schedules, we meet together to talk about the school. We do that school performance, is it called performance guide as well? And then at the end of the day, we meet to do an overall one for the district. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, because it's not only going into classrooms, it's talking about what you see in a building, and then talking overall about what you see in a district.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dana. Yeah, so we will meet at a central location. That'll be part of that scheduling process that we send out, that email in December. A lot of times we met at the board, or just depending on where we are in the district. You all will choose where the best place for us to come together. We'll start that meeting generally around 8:30, depending on some cases. For instance, I know for Judy's East Carter group and that Floyd Central group, that's a long drive for those, so they may try to start a little bit later to give those teachers a chance to make that drive in the morning. But we'll do a brief overview there, go through the tools, and make sure as many people understand the tools as possible to the best of our ability. And then that's that calibration visit that we do, the first one that the group does together. And then again, as Dana said, we'll come back together at the end for that school performance guide discussion. All right, Emily Reed. Are the Zoom calls on the 3rd and the 10th different topics or the same info repeated? They will be different topics. So let me go ahead and jump to the end here. You'll notice that the December, it should say December 3rd, not December 10th. I cut and pasted the wrong information. I'll have that updated. This should be December 3rd. That is the tools webinar and the day. So we'll talk a little bit more specifically about the schedule of the day and the individual tools. We'll chunk that by 10 or 15-minute groups, hopefully 10-minute groups. I'll try not to talk as much, so that the people who are part of the observation team should try to watch the December 3rd webinar. If they can attend it live, great. If not, then the recording will be available. And we'll chunk that by recording as well, by tool, so that they can watch it in smaller pieces instead of trying to watch a 30-minute video, which is not that exciting. The December 10th session will likely be a shorter session, not as long, and that'll be set up in case there are any major questions or things are moving forward as we move forward. Ms. Brewer or Mr. Brewer, how will we know the round we will host other districts? So I'm going to go back to this slide right here. If you're in this first column, group 1, you're the first group to be holding. That would be February 3rd to February 14th. If your district is in that second group, you're part of that February 17th to March 6th group. And again, we recognize the KDE field testing is in there. Nothing I can do about that. I apologize. And then if you're in this last column, you're part of group 3. That'll be that March 19th to March 20th. And we'll start doing makeups beginning March 23rd. We know that goes into spring break, so we're trying to stay off that Thursday and Friday. And we know in high schools even Wednesday is tough because of tests for the end of that period. But that's all we have available. We'll jump in. If we have a lot of makeups, we'll move those to after spring break, and we'll give 3 or 4 days to get back in session. Last year we had, I believe, 7 makeups that we had to go through because of either flooding or other outages.
If your school is a national board school, make sure you let the people who are involved in that know the dates for the circle monitoring, because we did have some cases last year when they were trying to schedule that at around the same time. So hopefully we've let you know the dates soon enough that now you can share it with them so we won't have conflicts with that.
Yeah, and thank you, Dan. We were going to try to move a week later, but because of the testing, because of the field testing, we were not able to do that. So I will stay on for a couple of minutes. I'm going to end the recording here, but if you have any questions, please feel free to stop and ask. Or will we get the PowerPoint and the recording? Yes, I will share both of those as well.
I think you guys.
About 72 hours.
I'm sorry, Roland, would you say that again? 72 hours?
Yeah, it'll take me about 72 hours by the time it's got to render, and then I got to do a little bit of editing on it, then I just got to upload it, and just trying to get that done will be 2 or 3 days.
Okay, guys, I think you're really going to enjoy it. We had so much good feedback last time from the monitoring, and so I think you're really going to enjoy doing that. So please let us know if you have any questions at all about it, or let me know if you have any questions about anything.
Dana, you have a request from Emily on there.
Okay.
Also.
Yes, ma'am. Do you know my cell phone number, Miss Emily? I'll send it to you just in case.
All right. Well, thank you all. So I'll stay on for just a couple more minutes.